Her error was assuming she could simply arrive and dismantle him without consequence. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar stood at the witness desk with her prepared notes ready to lecture House Speaker Mike Johnson on topics ranging from Christian nationalism to threats against democracy. She had her talking points organized, her political allies were waiting, and her media supporters were prepared to amplify the confrontation. This was intended to be her viral moment, a decisive victory over the new Republican leader in front of the world. She remained completely unaware of the events that were about to unfold. Johnson sat opposite her in the House Ethics Committee room while the public session was broadcast to the nation. He appeared tranquil, displaying the soft-spoken politeness of a Southern gentleman that tends to disarm opponents before destroying them. As a constitutional lawyer who had argued before the Supreme Court, he never lost his temper or raised his voice because he did not need to. He possessed something far superior to volume, which was truth supported by hard evidence and receipts. Omar concluded her opening statement, a scripted attack regarding religious extremism and the dangers of faith-based policy in government. Johnson offered a smile that was not malicious, but rather the knowing expression of a prosecutor holding evidence the defendant does not know exists. He thanked the Congresswoman for her passionate remarks and agreed that the country should be concerned about extremism and foreign influence. He concurred that loyalty to other nations over America and enriching one's family through political office are indeed serious threats. He paused briefly to let the weight of those words hang in the air before shifting the focus. He suggested that before discussing his alleged extremism, they should examine hers. He opened a thick folder filled with visible documents, including financial records, campaign filings, and official reports that were all public and damning. He noted that she had questioned his loyalty to the Constitution and implied his faith made him dangerous. He called these accusations projection, a psychological term for accusing others of the very behaviors one exhibits oneself. Therefore, he proposed following her money and reviewing her scandals to identify the actual threat to the country. He looked at her with Southern politeness that barely concealed the steel underneath. He asked the Congresswoman to help him understand exactly how much money she paid her husband's company from her campaign funds. Her hand nervously touched her hijab, a small tell that Johnson noticed and filed away mentally. He reminded her that this is a matter of public record, and she should be fully aware of the figures. He asked again how much of her donors' contributions went directly to her spouse's business. She hesitated, which was a fatal error, and attempted to claim that campaign consulting is a standard practice. He pressed for the specific amount, asking once more how much money was involved. She remained silent because she could not admit the number out loud, as it was too large and corrupt. Johnson answered for her, stating it was more money than most Americans will earn in their entire lifetimes. That sum represented her family's enrichment from donors who trusted her to use their money for democracy and representation. Instead, she made her family wealthy, while those donors struggled and sacrificed funds they could barely afford. He declared that enriching herself is not representation, but rather a clear act of fraud. He allowed that statement to breathe so the American people could absorb the reality and let their anger build. There were 5 scandals and 5 rounds of proofs pointing to one single truth. He asserted that she serves Somalia primarily and never puts America first. The room fell silent in that specific way that indicates everyone knows they are witnessing something significant. Johnson displayed the first document, a Federal Election Commission report that was official, undeniable, and a matter of public record. He noted that she accepted donations from hard-working Americans, some of whom gave what they could barely afford. These were small amounts like $25 or $50, which is significant money for families struggling to pay rent. They believed in her and trusted that their money would help elect a representative to support democracy. He paused and looked at her, asking where exactly that money went. She attempted a rehearsed deflection, claiming that campaign expenditures are carefully documented. Her voice became defensive and higher in pitch as she insisted her campaign complied with all requirements. He answered that the money went to her husband's company and asked her to help him understand the justification. He reminded her that donors sacrificed while their children needed shoes, yet they gave because they trusted she was different. He produced more documents showing payments listed repeatedly over months and years, all going to one place. She took that money, that sacrifice, and that trust, and paid it to her husband, Tim Meint, and his consulting firm. He asked what specific services she required that only her spouse could provide. He queried what unique expertise he possessed that justified paying him more than her donors make in a lifetime. Her mouth opened, but no words came, because there was nothing she could say. The records were public, the payments were documented, and the corruption was proven. He proposed discussing her donors, real people, including working families and legal immigrants in Minnesota. These were individuals who followed every rule and believed she represented them and would fight for them. His voice became softer but more dangerous as he described them working multiple jobs to survive. Both parents work while barely seeing their exhausted children, their bodies breaking down, but their spirits remaining hopeful. When they see her, they think she understands their struggle because she came from nothing. He looked directly at her and stated that she betrays them by taking their small contributions. She pays millions to her husband, allowing her family to get wealthy while donor families remain poor. She sacrifices nothing while they sacrifice everything, which is not representation, but exploitation. A voice from the gallery spoke up, an older woman with a Somali accent sounding tired. She said she donated $80 over 2 campaigns despite being on a fixed income because that money mattered. She skipped buying necessities to afford it, believing the congresswoman would fight for working immigrants like herself. She thought her money would help, but it only helped the husband and made the family rich, while she still struggles. The woman sat down as others murmured in agreement, feeling anger and betrayal. Johnson continued relentlessly, noting that the Federal Election Commission had investigated the matter. It was not political enemies but the federal agency overseeing campaign finance that looked into the payments. He held up the report on official letterhead, showing that violations were not merely alleged, but proven and documented. She broke campaign finance law and paid her husband amounts that violated regulations. She used campaign funds improperly and was forced to reimburse the money and pay a fine while admitting wrongdoing. Her hands were shaking now with a visible tremor because this was bad and fully documented. This was a federal violation officially found, not a partisan attack or conspiracy theory. He asked her to help him understand if she was thinking about her donors when she wrote those checks to enrich her family. She tried to speak with a weak voice about services provided, but he cut her off. He asked if she was thinking about the Somali grandmother who donated $80 she could not afford. He asked if she thought of working families giving $50 instead of buying shoes for their children. He asked if she was thinking about them or simply focusing on her own bank account. A long silence of 10 or 15 seconds followed, as she had no answer or defense that did not sound corrupt. Johnson leaned forward and stated she was not thinking about them, but rather about her own enrichment. Their sacrifice funded her comfort, and their trust funded her betrayal. While veterans and working families struggled to survive, she paid millions to her husband. There are different rules for her and a different system, resulting in her enrichment and their exploitation. He turned to the camera to declare that Round 1 campaign finance fraud was proven by the Federal Election Commission. He stated that we must follow the money because it always reveals the truth, and Round 2 concerns another betrayal. This involves the marriage, the brother, and the immigration system where she may have cheated while families waited. Johnson pulled out different documents now, including marriage certificates, immigration records, and school documents. All the records were public but deliberately confusing, and upon seeing them, Omar's breathing changed. This was the accusation she feared most, the one that haunted her and had no good explanation. Johnson asked to discuss her marriages and help him understand the timeline. She married one person, then another, divorced the first, divorced the second, and then married the second one again. He noted it was confusing, almost deliberately so, as if she were trying to hide something. He spread the documents out for the camera, stating that evidence suggests she may have married her biological brother. He clarified he was choosing his words carefully due to threats of lawsuits, but the implication was immigration fraud. Her face went pale, because this was the accusation she could never fully refute. She claims it is not true, calls it a conspiracy theory, and threatens legal action. However, she never actually proves it is false or provides the documents that would clear up the matter. She never takes the DNA test that would end the speculation, nor explains the confusing marriages. He held up more documents showing the same address on marriage forms and photos showing family relationships. He noted suspicious immigration timing and divorce records that are sealed, alongside her absolute refusal to clarify anything. He asked her to help him understand why she does not prove her innocence if she is legitimate. She tried her standard response, claiming the story has been thoroughly debunked. He asked who debunked it, noting that she never provided evidence, but only claimed it was false. He turned to the audience and asked them to consider what they would do if accused of marrying a sibling for fraud. They would immediately prove the accusers wrong, show documents, and take tests to clear their name. Because such an accusation is disgusting and career-ending, anyone else would prove it false immediately. He looked back at her and noted that despite years of questions, she never actually proves it false. She just attacks the accusers and plays the victim while refusing to show the documents. She could not answer because any answer would be bad. Admitting to a DNA test implies doubt, while refusing suggests guilt. Johnson pressed on, stating that the real victims are not her, despite her constant claims. The victims are the immigrants who followed the law and suffered to come to America legally. His voice became passionate as he described those who waited years in refugee camps. They followed every rule, submitted every document, and proved every relationship. They were separated from family and missed weddings and funerals, sacrificing everything to immigrate the right way. He pointed at her, noting that she may have cheated and committed fraud to bring her brother in illegally. There are different rules for her, where she succeeds by breaking the law while they suffer by following it. He asked if it was America first or Somalia first, suggesting this fraud puts her family and Somalia above America. A man stood up in the back, a Somali immigrant, speaking with a heavy accent. He stated he waited 8 years in a refugee camp with his family separated. He followed every rule and interview to get to America legally the right way. Now he hears she may be married to her brother and may have cheated the system in months. He sat down as others nodded. Legal immigrants who felt betrayed if she had indeed cheated. Johnson's voice became softer and more dangerous as he asked her to help him understand. He asked if she committed immigration fraud, how that is different from any other crime. He wondered if being in Congress makes her special or if different rules apply to her. She could not and would not answer, simply sitting there as her world collapsed around her. The evidence is public record, including suspicious immigration timing and school documents showing relationships. She lectures America about immigration and demands open borders while she may have committed fraud herself. He leaned back, summarizing that round two involved allegations of brother marriage and documents she refuses to release. While her community suffered to immigrate legally, she may have cheated, proving she puts her family first. He stated that we should follow the money because round three concerns her words about September 11th. It is about the worst attack on America, and exactly what she said regarding it. Johnson reached for the remote, and a screen flickered to life behind them, ready to play Omar's video. She knew what was coming and started to speak, but Johnson held up his hand. He proposed they watch together so America could hear her exact words in her own voice. It was about the day that changed everything, speaking to the Council on American-Islamic Relations. He noted that this organization has documented ties to terror and has defended terrorists. In the video, she stated that CARE was founded because some people did something, and everyone lost civil liberties. Johnson paused the video, letting those 4 words hang in the air, heavy and unforgivable. Some people did something, is how she described 19 Islamic terrorists hijacking planes and murdering 3,000 Americans. Families were destroyed, children were orphaned, and the world was changed forever. Yet she calls it, "Some people did something," minimizing the mass murder. His voice stayed calm, but one could feel the controlled, lethal rage underneath. To her, it was not terrorism or mass murder, but something minor and forgettable. It was as if 3,000 American lives and the heroes who died did not matter. He pulled out large printed photos for the camera to catch and for America to remember. He told the Congresswoman to look at the faces, the burning towers, and the Pentagon smoking. He told her to look at what some people did and mentioned Nicholas Harros Jr., whose mother died that day. He wore a shirt with her quote to the memorial and demanded she acknowledge his mother's murder. Johnson paused to let the question hang, noting that she did absolutely nothing. She never apologized to him, never acknowledged his mother, and never took back her words. Instead, she claimed victimhood and argued she was misunderstood, but the context makes it worse. He played more of the video where she claimed Muslims were the real victims who lost civil liberties. To her, the tragedy was that Muslims were inconvenienced, not that Americans were murdered. A woman in the gallery stood up, shaking and crying, saying her husband was a firefighter who never came out. She has lived 23 years without him, and her children grew up without a father. She sobbed that her husband's murder was something, and his life meant something. The woman collapsed back into her seat, while others comforted her, making the room feel heavy and raw. Johnson spoke quietly now, asking if the Congresswoman is truly American, and if she mourns who we mourn. Americans do not say some people did something about September 11th. They say, never forget. Americans honor the sacrifice, say the names, and remember their heroes. He looked at her directly and stated that she does none of these things. She minimizes the event and defends an organization with terrorist ties, making Muslims the victims instead. It matters to her that they were inconvenienced, showing where her sympathy lies. Her hands were trembling now because every American watching knew she did not feel what they felt. They knew she was different, foreign, and not American in her heart. Americans honor the victims, but she dismisses American pain to serve Somalia. He turned to the camera, noting that while veterans fought terrorists, she said, Some people did something. She never apologized, proving she represents herself and Somalia, never America. That was round 3, her betrayal of the victims and heroes of September 11th. He announced that round 4 is about money again, but a different and bigger fraud. $250 million was stolen from hungry children with connections leading to her protection. Johnson pulled out new documents, a thicker stack detailing federal indictments and FBI reports. He stated we must always follow the money, which in this case involved funds to feed hungry children. The nonprofit Feeding Our Future was supposed to provide meals to poor kids during the pandemic. This was when schools were closed, families were struggling, and help was desperately needed. However, he spread the documents to show that the money did not feed children. The money funded massive organized fraud involving fake meal sites and fake records. It was real theft, where luxury mansions and Ferraris were purchased with tax dollars meant for starving kids. He held up a photo of a huge, expensive mansion that this fraud purchased. While families suffered, criminals bought jewelry and wealth with money meant to feed children. This theft was protected by silence, connections, and ultimately by her. She tried to claim she had no knowledge, but Johnson asked her to help him understand. These thieves donated to her campaigns, worked for her, and had her personal cell phone number. He pulled out campaign finance records showing donations from Feeding Our Future organizers. Money stolen from hungry children was given to her campaign, and she kept it. Some call it money laundering, taking dirty money from a criminal enterprise. He produced more records showing it gets much worse, involving her senior campaign finance official. Her own staff member was indicted for participating in the scheme and stealing from the program. Her campaign official was stealing from hungry children while working for her, yet she claims to know nothing. Her face was ash white because this was criminal and provable by federal indictments. Johnson's voice became intense with controlled fury as he asked her to think about the victims. These were not abstract victims, but real American children in her district who went to bed hungry. He showed photos of empty school cafeterias and the sad faces of kids. A young teacher stood up, shaking with rage, stating she bought food with her own money. She applied for help and was denied, told that money wasn't available. Meanwhile, criminals were stealing $250 million and buying mansions while connected to the Congresswoman. The teacher sat down as Johnson continued, noting that federal trials are ongoing and the fraud is proven. The connections to her are public record, with her donors charged and community members arrested. She says nothing and does nothing, distancing herself only because she is forced to. He asked if she was thinking about hungry students when her donors were buying mansions. Or was she thinking about her campaign, money, and protecting her community even when they are criminals? She could not answer because claiming ignorance implies incompetence, while admitting knowledge implies criminality. Johnson asserted this fraud was in her Somali community involving her donors and workers. She protected Somali criminals over American children, which is betrayal rather than representation. He turned to the camera to reiterate that $250 million was stolen while she kept the fraudsters' money. Round 5 is the final question regarding where she really stands: America or Somalia? Johnson reached for the remote again for a different video, this time of Omar speaking to a Somali audience. She spoke in the Somali language, thinking Americans would not see it, or that translation wouldn't matter. Before playing it, he asked her directly, America first or Somalia first? She tried the standard answer about representing Minnesota, but he rejected it. He pressed on who she serves and where her loyalty lies. She deflected and claimed the question was racist, but he played the video for America to hear. English subtitles appeared as she stated, "The Somali government is our government." She said it belongs to them, and they need to protect its interests. She encouraged Somalis to use their votes to pressure American politicians to support Somalia. Johnson paused the video to highlight the phrase, "our government." He asked who "we" refers to, noting it is evidently not Americans, but Somalis. She identifies as Somali first and advocates for that country, not Minnesota or the people who elected her. He read the oath she took to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. It requires true faith and allegiance to America, not to any foreign government. He stood up, making the moment more serious and final. Her actions, words, and votes betray that oath, showing she serves a foreign power. She instructs Somalis to use the American political system for their benefit, which is foreign agency. He pulled out voting records showing a clear pattern where she voted against recognizing the Armenian genocide. She did this because Turkey didn't want it, and Turkey is important to Somalia. She voted for foreign interests against American values. She voted against sanctioning the Maduro regime because socialist dictatorships align with her ideology. She voted against Taiwan defense funding because China is important to Somalia. She voted to block arms to Israel, America's closest Middle East ally, because Somalia sides with Palestine. The pattern is clear. Whenever it is America's interests versus foreign interests, she chooses the foreign. She does not serve America. She serves Somalia, and always will. A Vietnam-era veteran stood up, his voice shaking with age and rage. He said he fought for this country and took the same oath she did, but he meant it. He watched brothers die for America, yet she takes that oath while serving a foreign government. He called it treason, stating she represents us while collecting an American paycheck to vote against American interests. He sat down as others stood, understanding they had witnessed a foreign agent in Congress. Johnson gave her one last chance to clarify if she is America first or Somalia first. She opened her mouth but said nothing, for the video and votes were undeniable. Her silence, words, and actions answer the question. Somalia is always first. He gathered the documents detailing 5 rounds of scandals, frauds, and betrayals. Round 1 was campaign finance fraud, and Round 2 was possible marriage fraud. Round 3 was minimizing the September 11th attacks, while Round 4 involved billions stolen from hungry children. Round 5 proved she considers the Somali government her own and votes accordingly. He looked at her one final time, declaring she is not America first, but Somalia first. She is a foreign agent in the American government who has been completely exposed. He turned to the camera to state that this truth consists of 5 proven scandals and 1 clear pattern. She serves Somalia, never America, and must be removed from our Congress. Ilhan Omar is not unique, but rather a warning of what happens when America forgets to vet its leaders. She represents the danger of foreign loyalty in government and using American power for foreign benefit. She does it openly because political correctness and the fear of racism accusations shield her. However, the 5 frauds connect to reveal she enriches her family while donors stay poor. Her possible marriage fraud shows a willingness to cheat systems that others respect. Her comments on September 11th show she does not feel what Americans feel or mourn our heroes. She protects criminals in her community over hungry American children. Her own words prove she uses the American political system for Somali interests. This is what foreign agents do, and she is not alone in the American Congress. Look at her colleagues like Rashida Tlaib, who serves Palestine more than America. There is a pattern of using political office for purposes other than representation, protected by the party. They are shielded by identity politics and kept in office by safe districts. The party protects them because they need their votes and minority representation to maintain power. Voters keep electing them because challenging them brings accusations of bigotry. However, the tide is turning as Americans wake up to the fraud and recognize the betrayal. Mike Johnson exposed it with 5 rounds of undeniable evidence, and she can no longer hide. The truth is out, and the pattern shows she serves Somalia, never America. We must prevent more foreign agents and remove the ones already there. We must demand loyalty and enforce the oath to put America first always. We must scrutinize everyone, regardless of identity, and remove anyone serving foreign interests. Support those who expose them, like Johnson, who had the courage to present evidence. The foreign agent problem is real, documented, dangerous, and proven. Ilhan Omar uses American power for foreign benefit, and she must be replaced with a loyal American. America first is not a suggestion, but a requirement for the Republic to survive. She is exposed and finished because the truth has revealed her priorities. We are just getting started in exposing more foreign agents in Washington. Share this message everywhere, so every American understands the betrayal. Comment on which fraud angered you the most and join the fight for accountability. We demand loyal representatives because America first must win for the Republic to endure. Let us fight and win, ensuring that loyalty and the oath prevail.